going to go outside at that point. Close the doors and open. And maybe instead of panning so heavy this way,
welcome to History Happy Hour. I am Liz Hobson, Museum Administrator at the Idaho State Museum. We hope you're all staying safe during this time. The Idaho State Historical Society, including the Idaho State Museum, Idaho State Archives, State Historic Preservation Office, and the Old Idaho Penitentiary and Historic Sites are dedicated to preserving and promoting Idaho history, even when we visit. While we may be closed today, we are excited to share that we will be gradually reopening, starting with an ISHS members only week, starting Monday, June 8th. Starting Saturday, June 13th, we will be open to the public. Among other safety precautions, the number of visitors can visit at one time and offer online ticketing only. If you would like to know more about the precautions we are taking here at the museum, please visit our website, history.idaho.gov. Tonight, we are discussing how the Idaho State Museum preserves Idaho's history through art in the M Store while supporting local Idaho artists. As always, if you have questions, please share them in the store and I will try my best to get them. We are joined tonight by Kelly Horsley, the M Store Manager here at the Idaho State Museum, and Angela Stewart, owner of Ladybug Press. Involved with ISHS for over 4 years. He's a long-term Boise resident with an affinity for the outdoors, traveling, cooking, and studying local history. Angela Stewart is the owner, illustrator, and press operator at Ladybug Press, creating and home goods with fun, original, and creative. Angela is also the founder of Handmade Idaho, an organization devoted to local craft. She is a fourth-generation Idahoan. Her great-grandfather was a wagoneer on the Oregon Trail and homesteader in Idaho. She, her dad, and grandfather were all born here in Idaho. Thank you both for being here. So to get us started, Kelly, could you talk a little bit about the M Store and how the store supports the museum mission?
Thanks, Liz. Well, I'm broadcasting tonight from the Idaho State Museum. Behind me is the M Store. Museum stores play a unique role in the museum world. I want everybody to think back right now. Think of your earliest museum memory that you have. You might not remember a fact that you learned at that museum. You might not remember something specific, but you always remember an emotion that you felt while you were there, something you saw, something that you touched. And you always connect that memory to your museum experience. So experience, it's not tangible, but museum stores such as our M Store give us a really unique opportunity to send visitors home with something tangible that is always going to connect them, going to connect that memory to their museum experience.
Very good point. So how do you choose the products to be sold in the M Store?
Well, we curate our merchandise very deliberately. Everything that we have has a direct connection to museum content. So the M Store is an extension of the museum experience. I'll use one example here. We have a little button pin. It is Geronimo, the parachuting beaver. If you don't know the story, come into the museum and learn all about it. But just taking this as an example, just a small, somewhat silly little pin. When we keep these in our kids section. Kids love them. They're always trying to twist their parents' arms into buying it. And it might seem like just a little souvenir, but it really describes a really big idea that we are trying to convey at the museum. It's this relationship between Idahoans and nature. The overall theme of the museum is the relationship between Idaho's land and Idaho's people. So again, we're just always trying to connect every product we have to a big idea in the museum in one way or another. Again, seeing as our museum content is all about the story of Idaho, it's only fitting that our product also has an Idaho connection. So our agency, the Idaho State Historical Society, we are here to serve the people of Idaho. And in doing that, we always seek to support local businesses. On the show tonight, we have an opportunity to see inside the world of an Idaho artist and small business owner. So with that, I will hand it over to Angela from Ladybug Press.
Hi, welcome to my studio. So we have a very small studio, 120 square feet. It houses our, excuse me, letterpress and a cutter. So this is our Chandler cutter. This is a vintage little, you wouldn't stick your finger in there because you wouldn't have your finger survive, but this is a guillotine cutter. We use this to trim all of our paper goods down. So we do all of our letterpress printing on what we call the Blue Beast. So we call it the Blue Beast because it's blue. And the Blue Beast is so much bigger than my initial press, thus the beast part. So 118 years old. This is solid cast iron made in Ohio, I believe, by the Chandler and Price Company. So we do all of our paper goods on this press right here. Many people ask me when they come to the studio where all the lead type is. And in our studio, we don't print with a ton of lead type because most of my work is illustrative. So we're drawing the fonts, we're drawing pictures. In fact, you can see in here a whole bunch of our plates. So they are metal and they are mounted on wood at what we would call type high. So they're thick, just like a lead type would be, but this is magnesium. So once we have drawn the illustration, we will have these plates made for us. And this is what we're printing today. This was actually the very first local greeting card I ever made, and I recently, this week, reintroduced it with a new version. So we have, this is called a key, and these are coins. So the only thing that's holding this plate in here is literally the pressure. These are expanding as I turn them. So we need to turn them a little on each side so we can get an even, nice, tight hold. Sometimes we have to plane it down a little bit. So once it's nice and tight, then we can pick it up and it doesn't fall out. So we've got our furniture and our plates. We're all ready to go in the press. So once we lock it in the press, well, actually before that, we would have inked it up, which it's already got black ink on the press. So now we will start it going. We run this with a vintage motor. So this is a variable speed motor. It's quite a cool little piece of history all in its own. They don't make them like this anymore. Nobody makes a motor like this. So each of our paper goods, they go into the press one at a time. So right now it's not printing because I haven't pulled the impression lever. So once I pull this, we'll be able to make impressions. So this one contains one color letterpress, and then we've actually already printed a watercolor that we did. So we're comparing letterpress with watercolor. Let's see here. So we'll give you a little view of what's on the walls and what else is in the studio. This studio is actually a shed that I designed and had a company help me build. And when my son was really little, I drywalled it, painted it, did all the mudding. That's all of our ink. Most of our ink is vintage and salvaged from other printers that don't need it anymore. And that's all of our vintage furniture that we use to set up on the press. So I think that's about all that's in my 120 square feet studio. Only our letterpress goods are made in this studio. All of my screen printed goods are made on my 4-color screen printing press that lives in my Tudor house because it doesn't fit in the studio.
Well, that is so much fun. Thank you for sharing. That product looks amazing. I know I've definitely purchased some of your work from the M store. So thank you so much for giving us that little glimpse into the process.
Oh, thank you. I think we've seen everything all the way around, so I'll switch over.
Sounds good. And then join us for some discussion. So as we transition, I will ask Kelly a question. So, you know, looking at what went into all of that and what's behind you in the M store, what unique considerations do you really take into account when you go in and select a product that you want to have in the M store?
Well, we're always trying to find a connection between a product and artifact we have in the museum, a story that we're trying to tell in the museum, anything like that. So some products, such as the little pin that I was just showing you guys, they really do seem almost kind of silly when you first look at it, but really it really does have a big connection to an idea that we're trying to convey.
And Angela, now that you're back in front of, what was the name of the press again?
The Blue Beast.
The Blue Beast. Okay. So we just had a question come in from somebody watching us for you, Angela. So why do you do all of the press by hand versus mass producing?
A couple of reasons. Two, I feel that the texture that we get from letterpress is something that you cannot repeat in a mass printing. I also feel that keeping in with tradition, we really prefer to have our goods have a little bit more handmadeness. Anybody can send something to a laser printer or a digital printer, but this is like a step above. You can't just pull this off. In fact, it's not even quick. It takes me a while, though I do 24 a minute when I'm printing. So that is fast in terms of turnover. But when it comes to, you know, needing to do the illustrations, get the plates, lock it up, print each one at a time, it's just something that you don't get from a more of a flat printing.
Great. And why is supporting local artists so important?
There are so many answers to this. I think one of the biggest is that when you support local artists, you're supporting the uniqueness that is Idaho. There's something to be said for having the opportunity to be able to buy products that are made locally. This is reducing fossil fuel usage. It's so much better for the environment if we're not shipping things around the world constantly. But also, I think the uniqueness that we have in this state is just something that isn't elsewhere. And when you're supporting local, you're also supporting people who are your neighbors and friends, and it keeps so much more of the money in our economy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, to echo what Angela was saying, it almost always just, local products just have more heart and soul put into them, almost always. And then, of course, you know, from our point, you know, we're here to serve Idahoans. So we always take it upon ourselves to support local whenever possible, and that goes for all parts of the state of Idaho. We try to support businesses from every nook and cranny of the state.
So are most of the items in the M store, when possible, all from the state of Idaho?
Yeah, for the most part, they are.
Amazing. And Angela, how do you choose your words and images on your products?
Well, usually a lot of times I have a giant board online that has all the ideas as I come up with them, because a lot of times we'll be out hiking or biking and I'll think of something and be like, that would be really great on a card. but I often don't have time to work on it right then. So I'll write it down as like ideas, and then I will further brainstorm it. A lot of times we're trying to keep a balance of products in stock. Like we don't want to have only birthday cards or only cards that are just, you know, no sentiment. So sometimes it's like, well, I really want to make this, but I need to wait until, you know, we really need birthday first. So sometimes when it comes to that, we have to kind of focus on keeping our inventory really rounded. When it comes to what kind of words we will put on cards, we're often trying, and even on other products, we're trying to make things that are not just available everywhere else. We want to make our own original cards and our own original designs, and we want to make things that are worth sending, worth gifting. We really want our products to be a long-standing thing, not a throwaway object. So we really work on the quality. We try to make them really like touching. We have several cards that are about, you know, sending hugs or sending love. So that's really kind of, for me, something I would want to send. So sometimes it's creative and funny and it's got a pun to it, like our sloth card, it says hugs enclosed. I mean, he's hugging the, he's hanging and hugging the stick. So, you know, that's kind of like how they work. Sometimes it's just a matter of it sounded good.
Yeah. And we did have another question come in from somebody watching who's probably concerned for you in the winter. It's not an art related question, but is your studio heated so that you can work there in the winter?
Yes. So my first studio space, I was so gracious to be given space in my grandmother's shop, but it had really no heat and it was miserable. I would wear a snowsuit in the wintertime and gloves and drink a lot of hot tea and run to the other room and stand in front of the fireplace for 5 minutes and then go back in there and work. So when I built this studio, we have a heater in the wall, which does okay. And then I also bought an oil heater from the thrift store because sometimes you just need a little more heat right next to you faster. And I discovered after I built it, I didn't want to put an air conditioner in it. I really thought that the ceiling fan would be enough. So heat actually ended up being a bigger problem for me the first year. So we put an air conditioner that we bought off of Craigslist in the wall, and I've probably only used it 5 times since. So some years aren't too bad. A lot of times if I don't work in like this time of day, it's okay because it's not as hot. But those big doors in the front are gorgeous, but they're also facing the sun. And if I did it again, I would put in a bigger heater. But I needed 220 power for that, and we live in a 1930s house, and getting this electricity here, it was very cost prohibitive to try to bring in more. So I kind of went with what I could get, and it seemed like it was gonna be so much better anyways. But it's a good thing that I don't get cold that easily.
So we had another question come in. So how did you turn a creative idea into a business? So what would you advise to a fellow budding artist that wants to sell their creative works to the public?
That is an amazing question. And I think there's no wrong way to get started, but I think the biggest thing is that you have to start. For me, I'm trained as a graphic designer. I was doing corporate work. I had a small child, and a friend of mine suggested, why don't you try to put some of your letterpress stuff that you make on Etsy? And I thought, no, I don't know about that. But I tried it, and then I went out and found a local retailer who decided they would stock my cards. So I had like 6 cards, and that's it. So I'm not saying you have to have a lot to start, but I just had a few. And then I was going to be a test. I was going to give it a year and see if it was worth it. And since then, this is all I do for a living. I don't even do design work much anymore, just for a few friends that, you know, beg me until I give in. So I feel really grateful, but the biggest thing is you just have to start. If that friend hadn't pushed me, I don't know if I would be doing this now.
Yeah. And Kelly, for you, where do you find the local art that you have in the store?
Well, fairs, there's all kinds of great little networking opportunities around town, things like Wintry Market, Art in the Park. and just going around and familiarizing yourself in little shops with what's out there. You know, Idaho doesn't have, I mean, there's less than 2 million people in Idaho, but in that population, there is so much diversity in the art that is out there. And it's always so exciting to find somebody new.
Yeah. And Angela, another question for you that came in. Where did the name of your business come from? And follow up, is the design on your t-shirt one of your own?
So we'll start with the t-shirt. Yes, this is our constellation design. And actually, this is technically my son's design. He saw something I was drawing and he said, you should do it like this. It should be a constellation. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. So we drew it up. And so this one is fun, and it's mostly just available on t-shirts and tea towels, but it's one of my favorites. And then for the Ladybug Press, I was in school working on a project back in college, and I've always loved ladybugs. In fact, my mother even sewed me a ladybug costume for Halloween one year. It was very intense. It was a very cute costume. And I guess I've just always been attached to them. And before, I had always practiced under my name. So I really wanted to have a business. I wanted the business to have a name that was a brand of itself without my name in it. And I think that Ladybug means so many good things that it made me really happy. And there's lots of great visuals that I could have gone with, and I've gone with a very simple one. But it's very me. It's always been something that I've liked, but I did just kind of fall into it. One college project, and then I think I could use that.
Great. And so when you think about, we've talked a little bit about it, but how, and maybe this one's for you, Kelly, how do you think this local art and the artists, how are they contributing to the preservation of Idaho history?
Well, when I think about preservation, I think more of like physical places, but it also includes our cultural heritage as well. Local art often is a product of its environment. It's got the character of the place that it's created. Artists like Angela impact our community by creating that Idaho brand that is so recognizable.
Yeah. Angela, do you have anything to add to that one?
I do have one little fun thing to show. Can I move the camera for a minute?
Sure.
So the thing that got me started making local products was this, we'll have to move into light, this line of coasters. So it was the year the Boise 150 project occurred. And I've always loved historic buildings. Thus, I live in one of the oldest houses on the neighborhood. But this, I don't know if you can see that. So this is 4 of Boise's buildings. So it's a set of 4 coasters. And this was something fun. I wanted to, give people a little piece of Idaho, or actually, I guess, Boise history. So that was very successful. So later, I really loved the natatorium. And I thought, I want to celebrate the buildings that are no longer standing. So these are 4 buildings. We have the natatorium, City Hall, the Columbia Theater, and the Moore Delamar House, which if we could all live in a little mansion like that, we would. So those are fun ways that I really wanted to help people understand our area. I think a lot of people who are new here don't know about some of the really cool buildings that we've had in our architecture here. Is pretty diverse. We have a lot of great examples here of some really cool buildings.
Definitely. Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit, as we start to wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about what Handmade Idaho is?
So Handmade Idaho is something that began last year. So we started out with a holiday show. We found that there's so many local artists, but there really wasn't enough places for people to be able to meet up with the public and sell all the goods that they make. So Handmade Idaho is an organization that puts on a holiday show. We're now doing gift boxes, and we do kind of things where we can help artists find stuff that they're looking for. We're trying to bridge that gap. This year we will have a holiday show. We're not sure exactly what it's going to look like yet. We're working on all of our details, but we really want to work on connecting our local artists with the public, and the only thing that we really ask of our artists is that that their work is handmade and that they are in Idaho.
Wonderful. So I think another important thing to ask before we have some final comments is, where can we find your work?
So you can find lots of my goods at the M store, of course, and then we are also a member at Idaho-made at 6th and Main. So there is quite a bit of our different kinds of merchandise there. And we also sell at places like the Boise Co-op and Whole Foods and the Albertsons Marketplace. And you can also buy direct from our website.
Wonderful. And Kelly, you were just showing off some of the items there in the M store. And
Yeah, we have all kinds. We have some right up there, some of our totes. For a closer look, we got one right here. Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff.
And when we reopen to the public, visitors can come in and shop, right?
Yes, they can.
You'll be there.
I'll be here.
Wonderful. Well, before we wrap up, are there any final comments from either of you?
Support local artists.
Definitely, support local.
I just encourage everybody to come to the museum. As Liz said at the beginning, we're starting that reopening process, and we are so excited to be here.
Definitely. And yeah, and if you want more information about any precautions that we're taking there at the museum, you can visit our website. But thank you all for joining us tonight, and thank you to our guests. We are committed to providing opportunities like this to share with you, our visitor, while at home. The Idaho State Historical Society has developed a wide range of free resources for research, education, and fun that you can find at idaho.history.gov/historyathome, or you can stay up to date on our social media pages. We hope to see you at one of our sites very soon. So have a great night and stay safe.